Welcome everybody to another wonderful episode of Ministering Over Fostering. These have become one of our favorite things to do, and so I am very excited today. We're going to be talking about everything that you can think of physically active. So I'm just going to go ahead and give it to Lakeisha. She's going to walk us through this interview. She usually does an amazing job at it. So go ahead, Lakeisha.
Hello. Today we have Jessica from Bodynamics. Hi, Jessica.
Hey, everybody.
Hi. Thank you so much for joining us. If we can have you briefly introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about what you do.
My name is Jessica, and I am a fitness professional. I've been in the industry for about 10 years now, and my majority of work is in private personal training. So I train adults of different sizes and shapes and personalities and different goals there. But recently is when I started training also the youth. So I have a various number of classes that I do for the youth.
And if I can add, you're amazing at what you do, but we'll go a little bit more in detail. What encouraged you to start Bodynamics, and what services do you offer? So you mentioned a little bit that you train the adults and then some of the kids as well, but what services do you offer?
So for the kids, basically for them, what I had started in doing was offering PE classes. So we started during the pandemic, 2020, when everything shut down. So I had a concern kind of for everything that was going on. I saw that the youth were kind of locked up in their homes, and they were isolated, they weren't moving. So I saw a need there. So was speaking with different parents who were already homeschooling their kids, and they're like, you should totally come online with all of them and teach them how to move while they're at home. So that's what I did, and I started doing that and was starting to work with different charter schools in reaching these kids, and it was fun. We got to use Zoom. We got to teach them how to exercise via Zoom, connected them with other kids online, and I got my workout in. Oh my gosh, it's that hard. That was hard because I had to be in it all the time with the kids, but it was good and they had fun. And so then when things started opening up is when we started taking classes in person. So we did PE classes, and then we expanded to reaching sports performance classes. So kids who are athletes, we work on developing their skill as an athlete, and even basketball training. So basketball training is huge because I used to play, so I love just doing that. Just in general, I love coaching kids.
So you definitely have a passion for working with children, and I've seen that firsthand with my daughter. So what prompted you, what encouraged you to open up Bodynamics?
Well, I mean, there's a few reasons, right? So some of it was I just needed another avenue for income. So I saw the opportunity there for me to pursue it. There's charter schools that help supply the funds for their kids, and even parents who are homeschooling their kids, looking to plug their kids into PE classes. So I wanted to provide that. But in doing that, I also, as a parent myself, really value teaching our kids about health and fitness, about a healthy lifestyle. But even further than that, I think what goes deeper than that for me is more so developing the kids as a whole. So developing their character. And that comes largely through movement and exercise and sports, because I grew up playing sports and I saw how much it developed my character. And you're pressing through some hard things when you're trying to work out. Everybody knows how hard it is. So when you're teaching kids these things, you get an opportunity to also develop their character. And for me, that's huge because they can start applying that to almost every avenue of their life, not just fitness and sports,
And I know you kind of went into the question as to why physical activity is so important. And you mentioned one key very important trait, I feel like, is when you are working out, your mentality is everything. And I've noticed, just observing, watching, when you're working with one of my daughters, you are very positive, like you encourage those kids. And so how would you say when you have a kid, right, and say they're not following directions, or they're like, I can't do it, because we hear that a lot.
Yeah.
Adults, sometimes we do it.
For sure.
Yeah. What would you say? Like, how would you use what you use in far as training or doing the basketball camps? How would you use those to just encourage them?
So in my classes, you know, there's always kids, like you just said, there's always kids that are like comparing themselves to the other kids in the class, you know, especially usually it's the kids who are maybe just not as athletic, or they might be a little more overweight than the others. And that's okay. You know, they're all there for the same purpose, to stay in shape, to get stronger, right? So, but for those kids, they are a little bit more self-conscious and they get discouraged quicker. So for them, what I really try to do is not put on like a competition thing, but I really try to focus on maybe highlighting a skill that they're working on. So like, let's say it's learning how to develop a squat, right? Or learning how to do a specific skill in basketball. Then, and I pick ones that obviously they're not going to be too hard for them, but something that they will be able to accomplish. Mm-hmm. And I really encourage them to do that. Once they accomplish it, then my goal or my job is to just praise them for it. So as much as I can, I'm constantly reinforcing, you know, positive words of affirmation on how they're doing. So to me, though, it's not just praising like what they've accomplished. The huge thing that I try to teach or try to do with these kids is praising their effort and their character behind it. So praising the fact that they gave their all and they didn't give up, or they really tried to be resilient by bouncing back after they fell down. You know, and that to them is huge, because now they're going to come back the next time. And they do this sometimes for me too. They'll come back the next week and they'll be like, I didn't give up. See, I didn't give up. Right. So I know it's getting to their head. Those things are important, especially as a coach and as a parent, for those kids to hear that, because it's coming from somebody that they look up to and that they love, you know. So that's going to reinforce their behaviors, and it's going to help them, you know, feel more confident in what their abilities are. So yeah, those are kind of the ways I go about it.
I absolutely like that touches me. Like growing up, for me personally, growing up, like we had as a family just had such a bad relationship with food, right? So I think about myself as a young child, and to know there's so much about like physical activity and sport that I was afraid of, because I just didn't think I was going to have the capacity. So I didn't want to try, because I didn't want to be put in that position. And then coming from a place to trauma, like I think about our kids, there's so much in their little lives that is going wrong that they have no control over, right? But then you come into a place where not only are you learning that there's more to you than even you knew you had, right?
Yes.
There's strengths, you're learning determination, you're learning coordination, responsibility. Yeah. And then community, like you start to see other kids, they hype you up, and you start to feel really good about yourself. You're less insecure about yourself. So it makes me think sometimes when you're a child and you're going through and you're experiencing certain things that are traumatic in your childhood that you have no control over. But if you have this space where you can go and let out your frustrations and whatever anger, whatever things you have, you can let it out in such a healthy way.
Yes.
It opens up the door for you to learn so many other things about yourself. And those things then you can take into something else, like a career or, you know, whatever next life event you have. So I absolutely love that you're talking about this motivation about all of the things that they can do.
I agree. I'm just giving them that outlet. Like Myra said, you know, things, I feel like as adults too, like we go through things, and just to have a healthier outlet. And then with our resource parents too, to see, say, like a coach such as yourself, right, working with the kids, you are also a direct role model on showing these resource parents how to even interact with some of the kids that might be placed in their home. So I think that's super important. So I know you kind of touch base on some of the challenges and self-esteem that you maybe have seen. So definitely, if we can go back and kind of, I guess, identify some of those. You definitely mentioned positive reinforcement. What are some other traits that maybe resource parents can utilize in the home if they have like a foster youth placed that can just motivate them if they are experiencing some trauma or some type forms of challenges in the home?
So that's the hardest part, in the home.
Yeah.
You're gonna send them to class and be like, okay, go have fun, right? But at home is where it's like the hardest, but it's also where it's the most important. It's where the kids are gonna absorb the most, I feel. So as parents, I mean, as even a parent myself, I really try my best at home to again reinforce healthy habits. So that starts with me. You know, yes. So in doing that, I have to take the initiative. If I want to see my kids healthy, whether it be physically healthy through being active or eating clean, or even emotionally healthy, you know, with their character, it all starts with me, in my opinion. This is how it goes. So, and because I see that they just copy us, you know, they want to be like us. They see it's working for you, so they're going to try it for themselves. So I encourage parents to really embody that lifestyle themselves and be honest with their kids. If they're struggling themselves with those things, okay, now we're going to take on this journey together, and you can see how I am becoming resilient, how I am becoming a person who doesn't give up, who bounces back and tries again the next time, you know? Yeah. So they watch how we do things and they watch how we struggle, but they want to see how to do it, how to make it through the struggle. So that's my encouragement to the parents is do it yourself. If you mess up, bounce right back up, keep going with it. Find accountability, even find help. You're modeling to your kids how to do this. If they can't do it, it's good for them to reach out for help, you know? And then too, I know even for my kids, like if they ask or bring up anything in related to fitness or nutrition, I'm not gonna just be like, oh wow, good, that's great, I love it. But I'm gonna really try to foster that communication with them and engage it. So like if they're saying something about eating carrots today at school and something healthy, right? Then I'm gonna start asking them more questions. Oh, well, that's great. Like, did your teacher give it to you? Like, did you see other kids eating healthy too? How did it make you feel after you had something healthy to eat today? Like,
wow.
You know, so just engaging the conversation or encouraging them in their accomplishments with movement, asking them how it went so that they can explain and become more confident in what they're doing.
Going back to that role model, but I love that you identified that if they're struggling with something, to be honest, because I feel like sometimes, you know, kids don't see us, they may see us struggling, but they don't hear the reality of the situation. Like, okay, I'm having a hard time,
right.
Not eating that donut every morning, or you know, but I'm gonna do better and you know, intentionally try not to stop at this place, right? So I love that you mentioned that, and then I feel like that also brings forth just a closeness, like a bond, because you are being real with your kid, your resource family, and letting them know like, hey, I'm struggling with this, and then maybe how can you help me? Can you remind me not to do this?
Yes.
And
kids, they learn so much more from observing than they do from what we say.
Yes.
So, you know, a lot of the times it's so easy to say like, you know, you've been sitting there, that's why you're all depressed, like get up, go outside and go play some ball outside, or leave the video games, and you're all on video games. And yet if I'm a parent who's just there on the phone the entire time and I haven't gone out to do any of that, there's more that we're teaching with what we're doing and with what
Yeah.
we're saying. So that does make a huge thing. Like I have to start first with myself.
Yes.
It's just a natural teaching to the children.
Yes.
Well, I mean, I will say that the kids who find most success, honestly, are the ones whose parents or guardians, whoever's watching them, is deciding to take on that journey themselves as well. So the kids who where parents send them in and they're gaining the experience, which is great, but the changes, you don't see huge changes in the kids who just come to class and then don't do anything at home, and the parents are such a huge part. I don't think people realize that, but you will see such a huge transformation in your kid if you yourself are also willing to make that transformation. So just like you said, it's us modeling that, and they watch what you do more than what you say.
And I think this could really help some of our resource families too, because, when we have a child that will eventually come to our agency and we match them to the right resource family, we can do everything that we possibly can, host mentoring nights, go out and making sure that they have their needs and essentials, everything. But it happens in the home where that transformation really takes place. So I love that you did touch base on that. So Jessica, you are amazing. I love your business. My kids love everything that you offer. How can our followers find you? Because there might be some minors that are listening, some youth that we've worked with that might be listening, resource families. They're like, hey, I want to do this. How can they find you?
They can find me on, our website, which is bodynamics.org.
Okay.
So the word is combined, BODYNAMICS, Bodynamics.
Okay.
But you can find us there. You can find me on social media, Instagram at My Body Dynamics. So MYBODYNAM. So you have that, and then my personal page, which is Trainer Jess too, which I post a lot of things there.
We will also supply the links as well.
I have an additional question about
Yes.
physical activity. So we're talking about physical activity and all of this, right? But in your work that you've done with children and youth, why do you think, just speaking about physical activity, why do you think it's so important? How have you seen that it's affected kids when they do engage in this?
Okay, so yeah, that's huge. So when I see them starting to engage and make it more of their lifestyle, I see obviously a physical transformation, right? They change, they become healthier, more active, more agile, athletic. But more than that, they start to just, you see their self-esteem and their confidence increasing. They're just more joyful kids, honestly. They're happy kids. They love to be around others. They are not, ones that choose to isolate themselves. They kind of break out of their timidness, should I say, because they're being challenged and they're overcoming challenges, and so they're gaining confidence in that. But overall, yeah, there's that. You don't see them battling depression or anxiety very much. They're at peace. Like I said, they feel more joyful because it scientifically even proves that with exercise and healthy eating, you release a bunch of hormones and endorphins in your body that will lift your moods, stabilize your moods, and just have you feeling better. So that's the hugest thing that I see outwardly as they're progressing through our classes and as they're deciding to do this at home too. So, and this is for adults too. It's not just for kids. The same thing is for adults that it is for kids. So I think it's funny that, adults make it a priority, and we place an emphasis on adults working hard to change their lifestyle habits in regards to healthy eating and exercise. But it's just the same for kids. And actually, it's probably even more important right now for kids because what they develop as habits now will convert into habits later, right? So if we can get them now then it's going to save a lot of issues later in life too. So yeah, I think it's an important avenue to reach for in the youth.
And even just hearing like all of the positive things that movement has, like I'm wondering, that has to transpire to kids that have ADHD and those types of diagnoses, right? Where this might help them focus and might help them burn some of that energy with school.
For sure.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So there's lots of studies too that even show that brain development is a lot higher in kids who exercise. So they encourage kids actually to exercise and move earlier in the day, even before they start their studies, because now it's like awakening their minds and it's allowing their brain to function at a higher capacity than if they didn't move. And some of that has to do with the oxygen flow, the blood flow that happens as you move. So yeah, for them to learn, it's a huge part to stay active in that too. So there's a lot of benefits to exercise that people don't realize, and it's life-changing, honestly.
I'm like, wow, just hearing about starting before even having the kids to sit down, because I mean, I feel like, especially during COVID, that was really tough on some of our resource families too. And ultimately it would become like a schedule where kids would eat and then they're just sitting down at a computer for hours upon hours in a day. And it's like, no wonder why they're fidgety.
That makes it hard for them to focus, right? So it does help them focus. But then you even bring up another point, like when they're sitting, you know, most of the day, which is the most of us, you know, we're either at the computer, at the phone, sometimes sitting in front of the TV. You know, it's hot outside, we want to stay inside. It's cold, we want to stay inside. So it's like, so those things too, what it does is it develops poor movement patterns, and it actually develops muscle imbalances. I see that now even in kids, primarily, you know, when they reach 10, 11 years old, I start seeing poor posture, and it affects their ability to move in certain ways too. Just functional movement skills are impacted by their posture from, you know, daily habits. So too, because I work with adults as well, I see how if they develop those posture habits now, it can negatively impact their futures as adults. And so my goal is like, no, you guys, you gotta learn. They don't understand it, they don't care, you know, but that's why it's so important as me as a coach to teach them fundamental movement skills and habits at home, so that they're not, you know, now suffering from postural disorders later in life. So yeah, I could go on forever, but
You love it. I know, Myra, are you taking notes? Because as social workers, you know, we're always at a computer or something. But wow, I mean, I definitely foresee a part 2 of this at some point. But Myra, anything else?
Just really grateful for you taking the time, Jessica, to really give us this information, because not only does it help us, like I even just, you know, we're on the computer for hours and hours. This is our work right now. And so we hardly get up to do other things. Sometimes we're sitting for 4 or 5 hours nonstop working through. And I've learned, like in the evenings, we're starting to go out for a walk, and even just that breath of fresh air, there's this feeling like it de-stresses me, right? Like all of that day to day, like it just feels like such a relief to be out in the fresh air. And so I think when we, like Lakeisha and I, we have these conversations with families all of the time about like, we almost sound like broken records, like extracurricular activities, like take the kids out, like, you know, get them to do something, some type of exercise, put them in a dance class or something, get their mind stimulated. Because again, all of our kids have dealt with trauma, and so we want that component to come in. But I think the way you're explaining it is going to help Lakeisha and I to bring this up as more of, look at all of the positive effects. It's not just us wanting to add more busyness or wanting to get you to the kids out of the house, or there's so much positivity to what it's going to be for their future lives, to get them moving, to get them out in some extracurricular activity. go to Bodynamics and work on some of these things, right? But it's more than just to be busy. And I love the way you put that together, because I think that helps Lakeisha and I when we're training, why it's important not just to do it, but there's something behind it.
I mean, the positive reinforcement alone, but a lot of our kids, like Myra said, they've come into contact with some form of trauma. And so, like, just to think like of a common situation, right? They might have had bio parents where they were used to hearing yelling and arguing and maybe even fighting sometimes, right? So if we're now putting them in an environment, in a resource family where they get angry, you know, experiencing something like you offer, that's teaching them how to deal with their emotions in a positive way. For instance, I know when I lost my grandfather, you know, as an adult, you kind of question things and you get angry. And I remember I started exercising at that time, and there were so many times where I would cry at the beginning of my training sessions because I know I needed that. And after that training session, I felt so good because that's how I dealt with my anger during that time. And even just going, like, if you're having a bad day, getting in the car, going to the park and getting that sunshine, like, you feel good afterwards.
Yeah, you're right.
Good. So I feel like everything that you said it's really helpful for our youth.
I know we're coming to the end of our session today, but as usual, I always kind of piggyback off and say, is there anything else that you wanted to share with our listeners about physical activity, or anything that came to mind that you'd like to leave us with before we close out?
No, I mean, I think I said a lot. But yeah, no, just do your best to just get outside, like you just finished with, Lakeisha, just going outside, getting fresh air. Start with a little bit of movement. Don't have to go all in right away, but with just a little bit each day will go a long way for yourself and for your kids. So that's how we do it with anything, right? Just a little bit at a time. 15 minutes a day, start there.
Well, thank you so much for allowing us to interview you, and we definitely will be in touch.
Sounds good to me. Loves talking with you guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.